You know that thing where you get an amazing pair of shoes at a really great price and want to tell everyone about it? Yeah, so do we. Here at Designer Shoe Warehouse, we'll give you something to brag about, like the latest styles from brands you love, or the trends everyone's obsessing over, or shoes that make you feel like, well, you. So go ahead, show off a little. Find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today. DSW, let us surprise you.
Look at him, eating whatever he wants, never gaining a pound. While I'm stuck with the boring special and can't lose an ounce.
How's your lunch, man?
Amazing. Yours?
So good.
Oh, I'm so happy for you.
Cool, buddy.
Weight loss isn't fair, but Mochi Health is. The affordable GLP-1 source that can fix your frustration with food.
So, same time next week?
No!
Definitely.
And your friends. Learn more at joinmochi.com. Mochi members have access to licensed physicians and nutritionists. Results may vary.
Voices for Justice is a podcast that uses adult language and discusses sensitive and potentially triggering topics, including violence, abuse, and murder. This podcast may not be appropriate for younger audiences. All parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Some names have been changed or omitted per their request or for safety purposes. Listener discretion is advised.
My name is Sarah Turney, and this is Voices for Justice. Today, I'm talking to Madison McGhee, daughter of John Cornelius McGhee, and the creator of the Ice Cold Case podcast. If you haven't listened to my episode about Madison's father, go back and listen to that first, or this interview won't make much sense. But what you're about to hear is just a real, raw, honest conversation about being a family member in true crime, the business of it all. We talk about the inspiration for her song, Snitch Ass Daddy, where the case is now, and what's to come. And make sure you stay tuned to the very end to hear Madison's hit single, Snitch Ass Daddy. And as always, thank you for listening. I'm so glad that you're here. No, honestly, we met, gosh, how was it, like 2 years ago now that we met?
Yeah.
Virtually? I know that we just met in person this year.
Yeah, well, it might not have even been that long. My show launched like a year and a half ago.
Okay.
So it had to have been within that time.
True crime is like dog years. Like it's been 25 years since we met.
Even just saying a year and a half ago, I was like, oh my God, the longest year and a half of my entire life.
It's hard. And that's why I wanted to have you on here too, to talk about this process, because I feel like not everybody, most people don't get it. I mean, they have the privilege of not getting it. And I'm so glad, I don't wish this experience upon anybody. But, I think, of course, my first question is, why did you make Ice Cold Case?
Yeah. It's such a layered answer. Because on one hand, I wanted my dad's case to be brought to the focus. My dad was murdered when I was 6. And I didn't know about it till I was 16, and it was still unsolved, and that never really sat right with me. And so I wanted there to be some sort of attention brought to his case. And then also there's this piece of closure. I wanted to investigate it because I felt like maybe I could do something about it. And if I didn't try, then I would never really feel fully at peace. And then there's this other element that sort of comes into play later, which is, I'm also sort of doing this for everyone else who's like me, because if I didn't have examples of this, like, I don't know where I would be, and there wasn't a ton, and there wasn't really anyone exactly doing it the way that I was doing it. And if I can sort of create a blueprint for other people, then maybe even if I don't solve this, it's all kind of worth it. So there's lots of different reasons, but the heart of the podcast part of it was I was desperate to get anyone to listen to me, that my dad was murdered and nobody knew what happened to him. And it really felt like nobody cared.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that most families who make their own content in true crime will agree that it's never plan A. This never happens to you. And your first thought is, oh my gosh, I'm going to make my own content about this because that sounds really fun. Because it's not,
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, about that process, about making the podcast physically. Like, what did that look like for you, and how was that?
It was the most roller coaster of a journey I've probably ever been on, because it also didn't start as a podcast. I come from a visual background, television and film. TV was always sort of the dream. I wanted to make movies, and I loved storytelling. And the older I got, and the more that my dad's case really resonated with me, documentary filmmaking always really stood out to me. I love the idea of telling real stories through this visual medium. And so I used to make my friends sit down with me and like tell me their life story on camera and put together these little videos called Meet My Friend. And I just loved the idea of telling people stories through visuals. And so when I really started to think about my dad's case and get into the weeds of the case files, for me, like a documentary just sort of made sense because that was the world I came from. And so I started gathering all this information and realized very quickly I was dealing with a really fascinating world, almost like otherworldly, where a lot of the docs that we watch are quintessential towns where police are down to talk on camera, and they know everyone in the town and everyone's friendly, and the victim is probably white, and the police probably did do everything that they could, so they have nothing to hide. And I was dealing with a very different set of circumstances. I was dealing with a really shady police department. I was dealing with really shady witnesses, really shady people. Nobody wanted to go on camera, and nobody really even wanted to talk. So getting the visual piece of this was not going to happen. It was, hey, can I record and just throw my phone on the table? I mean, even like microphones were out of the question. There was no clean audio that I was grabbing. It was like, hey, my phone's right there and it's recording, by the way. Or, hey, can I put my phone in a cup? And like maybe the cup will like help with it was like very run and gun, because people started to really flinch when it was like, oh, I'm recording this. So documentary was like fully out the window. Podcast was the next sort of natural progression for that. And why it ended up being that way. I used a lot of the audio that I had collected. And then also, I mean, it's so expensive to make a documentary. And I could sit in my living room with my microphone and make a podcast. So that was the next sort of piece of like, okay, I'm just going to do that because it's the quickest way for me to get this out there. And yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes. Yes, it does. Thank you. No, I just like to talk about that process too, right? Because I know that you had this background and, telling stories, but, in my experience, it's quite different when it's your own, because that emotional burden is there. And, not only that, I think through your podcast, it kind of shows the development and in some cases, the degradation of some relationships in your family. Like it's not an easy thing. You're not just telling a story and walking away from it. You have real life consequences with making this podcast. And I know that, you did this in real time. So it wasn't just like when you launched it, you got all this feedback. Everything was kind of happening all at once. So what was that like for you to talk to all these family members who, in most cases, you didn't really have a relationship with?
Yeah, it was really weird to meet some of my family members for the first time, and the first conversation we're having is about my murdered dad. There is no like, so what are you into? Or like, do you have a boyfriend? It's like, okay, immediately like, so tell me about my dad who got murdered. Like, where were you? What were you doing? Who do you know? There was a lot of like really uncomfortable conversations happening at like sort of the beginning of our relationship. So the downfall of our relationship was not as surprising because it was based on this foundation of like, you've been lying to me for all of this time. And that was sort of the beginning of, whatever semblance of a relationship I had with most of my family members. I wasn't super close with them, obviously, growing up. So it felt almost like it's this weird feeling of like when you meet someone and they're strangely familiar to you because we are related, but they're also a stranger. I mean, I don't know these people. I'm very big on like, family is sort of what you make it and you choose that. A family is like a feeling. I don't feel like they're my family. So it was very weird to sort of be like, oh yes, like we look similar. You remind me of my dad, but like we don't have this personal connection. Like I would never like die for you. I would never like, I'm not leaving you in my will. I don't feel that feeling with you, but I need your help and I want answers. And I'm sure in my mind, you want answers. So there must be this level of like connection that we have based on that. And maybe that's enough for us to have a relationship. It was not. So, and that's for reasons that maybe I don't even know quite yet. There's this level of shadiness and secrets that I think a lot of families have, but I had only really seen in like any documentary about the royal family, right? Like I did not know that like this level of like secrecy really existed in families in real life until I met mine. And it's like, it runs so deep. It's not like, oh yeah, your aunt cheated on your uncle like 3 years ago and we just don't really talk about it anymore. It's like, we're talking like murder. So it's crazy. So to be asking questions about that and to sort of see people flinch and their level of, uncomfortability when you're talking about certain things was illuminating, but it also almost built this extra level of mistrust because I'm starting to see through their body language, like they're very uncomfortable talking about certain things. And that doesn't make me want to trust them. And I already didn't. So it was very tough and you can't really build a relationship based on that. So I don't really talk to most of my family anymore. And it's sad, but again, I didn't really know them. And my idea of like finding answers for my dad, I'm so sort of one track minded. I'm like, whatever. I've lived 28 years without you people. I could go the rest of my life, but I really want to know what happened to my dad. So if that comes at the sacrifice of like not talking to like my one aunt 4 times removed that I totally forgot existed, I think I'll be okay.
This episode of Voices for Justice is brought to you by Quince. I've been trying to be more intentional about what I wear each day. I'm leaning into pieces that feel effortless, comfortable, and still put together. And Quince has been my go-to. The fabrics feel elevated, the fits are flattering, and everything just works without overthinking it. They use premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and ultra-soft denim. And the best part? Everything is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality and craftsmanship, not brand markup. I recently just ordered their tiered linen dress, of course in black. I wanted to pair it with one of my favorite pairs of brown wedges. The problem was, I didn't have a brown purse. So I got that from Quince too. It's one of my favorite outfits. It's easy, effortless, and feels amazing, especially as we're getting a little bit warmer here in Phoenix. Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/justice for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/justice for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/justice. This episode of Voices for Justice is sponsored by Chewy. If you have pets, you probably know about Chewy, and you also know that when they say that they have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy, they're not messing around. To keep them happy, Chewy has over 100,000 products from all the brands my pets love at prices I love. To keep them healthy, Chewy offers pet prescriptions, pet insurance, telehealth vet visits, and they're even rolling out vet clinics across the country. I've been shopping with them for a very long time. And in addition to the auto-ship feature that gets the dog's food to them every single month, I also love to experiment with different treats. But I'm a bit picky. For me, it has to be high quality with simple ingredients. I recently picked up treats from Shepherd Boy Farms that are 100% just chicken breast. Popcorn and Heber are already obsessed. Chewy has everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewpanions.chewy.com/Sarah E. Turney. That's chewpanions.chewy.com/SarahEattorney to save $20 on your first order with free shipping. chewpanions.chewy.com/SarahEattorney. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I totally agree that family is what you make it. And for me, I think one of the most compelling, really, parts of this podcast is the development of it all. And it really seems like at first, everyone was just kind of like, yeah, okay, Madison, we'll help and we'll talk about your dad or whatever. But then it came out. You had the launch party. You're being featured at CrimeCon. You're being featured in magazines. And it's like, as the show grew in popularity, it feels like the episodes really reflected that. People were kind of like, oh shit, this isn't just like some pet project for Madison. This might be a real thing. Am I off base in feeling that way, or did you feel that way also?
No, definitely. I like to tell people that I was raised by Taylor Swift, and that informs nearly every decision I make in every aspect of my life. I never, just my only advice to anyone listening is never underestimate Madison McGhee. If I'm doing something, it's like 400%. I won't do it if I can't give it. And this was no exception. I like being the underdog. Sometimes I say that, and then when people underestimate me, I'm like, oh, it's so annoying that nobody believes in me. But I think I secretly like it because it drives me really. I mean, that's like my motivating factor. So while I was doing these interviews, it was very much like, oh yeah, Madison's my family, right? They don't know what a podcast is. They're like, Madison's making her little thing for Netflix, like da 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 da. Like they don't even know like what's going on, right? I show up with my phone. One time I went with an audio guy. They're getting mic'd up and they're like, oh, she's just making her little thing for Netflix. It's like, okay, you have no idea what's going on here. But I love that because when I do it, and I do it to the best of my ability, and I stop at absolutely nothing to make sure that everyone on earth has heard this show, you're going to really hate that you thought this was just this little thing. And it almost drives me in a way. But yeah, I mean, they were very like, whatever, sure, we'll talk to you. There's one interview I just love that I do with the detective. And he's like, well, it's not like you're going to make a podcast or anything. And it's like my favorite line of any interview I've ever done. And it was like one of my first interviews. And he said that. And my phone's just sitting there recording him. And he knows this. And it's just hilarious because it's like nobody thought I would be doing this. And I think that's part of why I did. It was just this driving force of like, I have to prove people wrong. And a lot of these people, I think, are sort of partially responsible or have information. And it's like further than you just not believing in me and I want you to be wrong, I want you to be like shaking in your boots that like I'm getting really close. And it's been really fun for me to have those moments. It's been like, part of the roller coaster of this are like the little moments of joy, right? And I think that those little moments of like the magazine or being in something or on TV for something and talking about this are these little moments of like, all right, I got them right where I want them. And like, it's so fun to have those moments and know that, tomorrow I'm going to see something on Facebook of like, I can't believe Madison. And it's like, perfect. That means I'm getting close. And so it has been really interesting because I didn't think that it was going to be as big as it was. I was hopeful, but I really wasn't sure. I was cautiously optimistic that like maybe I kind of know what I'm doing enough that like the quality will be good. But like as far as marketing a podcast, it's like, it's part luck and part formula, and I don't have the formula. So if I can get lucky, great. And if not, then I'm screwed. And I think I got that little bit of luck. And so kind of figuring out then what to do with that is also a separate challenge. But again, my Lord and Savior, Taylor Swift, didn't raise no bitch. So I am like fighting and clawing my way to quote unquote relevancy because I think that will help solve my dad's murder.
Yeah, no, and there's so many things I want to ask you about. Because I do think that kind of families have this superpower in true crime that we are always underestimated. Like, as much as I think, there are people who love us and cheer us on, I think the default setting is like, well, they're just a family member. And it's like, some of the top podcasts to this day still record with the same microphone that you and I have inside of a closet. Like the barrier to entry is so low with podcasting that correlation between low expectations for families, like it just doesn't make sense to me. Like anybody can make a podcast. Why not me and you? And I wanted to ask you about that. Like, how do you feel the true crime, genre in general, like received your podcast as a family member making this?
It's funny. I think that there's two sides of true crime because it's inundated with creators, right? There's the consumer and then there's the creator. And sometimes they're both. Some people are like, oh, I like to listen, and so I made one myself. And so you can kind of, if it's this Venn diagram, that there's some people in the middle. But I look at it as two sides. I think that both sides actually value families in different ways. I think that the consumer actually really embraces the family member. I think that the consumer of true crime, the listener, the watcher, the viewer, the person who hits play is there for the family. I think they are so fascinated by these stories in part because there's this element of like, well, that could have been me. And that's why we see so many white women like true crime, because the people making the shows are making them about white women, right? And so they see themselves in these stories and they're like, oh my gosh, that could have been me. So then they're on TikTok and they're on Reddit and they're emailing the family member with like information that they heard about through a group chat that they're in with strangers they met on the internet. And it's like this whole phenomenon because the consumer is there with the family in mind. The creator is there sometimes with the family in mind, and sometimes knowing that if they just make a true crime thing, they're going to be famous because everyone likes true crime. And when things are getting made, the family is so discarded. And I think that's also leads to why consumers are so interested in the family, because then they're like, oh, there's this completely unheard side of the story that we're after. So then they're like following the family member on Instagram and following them on TikTok and waiting for them to make their statement because it's not always included in the version that you hear or see. And so I think finding a way to sort of merge it all and say, okay, in our cases, we want to tell our stories because we're the most qualified people to do so. If my dad was murdered yesterday, I would not be the person capable of telling this story. I would want, someone else to come in and maybe, a professional journalist or an investigator. I would be pleading with the media to like tell my dad's story because I would not be able to do what I'm doing now. But I would want to work with them, and I would want, the way that my dad is portrayed to be as a dad and not as a drug dealer or whatever else, right? And so I think there's a way to sort of merge it all when appropriate. But it doesn't feel like that's necessarily what's happening right now, and why shows like ours are A, so important, and B, perform so well, because we're feeding a ravenous group of people who are desperate to hear from people like us who don't really ever get to. And so I think that's why our shows do well once they're put in front of the audience. Getting it there is a challenge, and I've faced that challenge in a lot of ways because it is so inundated. But once you get there, it's like they want as much from you as you can give them because they're not used to hearing directly from the family members. And I think they really like it. And I think if creators could sort of see the supply and demand of that, maybe they would shift their perspective. But I also think when ego is involved, it's like it doesn't really matter what any stats, data, it doesn't matter what that says. If you're building a following and you're cool and people want to take a photo with you, fuck the families, who cares?
No, and I think that that's such a crucial point to bring up. There is a barrier, and I do feel that some creators keep families kind of at an arm's length of like, this isn't your space. You're here to interview for our shows. And, to the point where I've gotten messages where people say it's inappropriate for us to do what we do. But, you do have to think about the true crime consumer, too. When somebody is so deep in a case, they will consume anything on this case. They, of course, want to hear from the families, and not just in a way that some creator edited, right? Not just us crying about how sad we are about this. They want to hear those inner workings. They want to hear you interview your family members. I don't think any family that creates their own content in true crime is saying, this is a totally neutral look at the case. Like, no, this is a very intimate look at the case that you will not get anywhere else. You cannot completely tell these stories in a full way without people like you and I, without family members, even interviewing or even just trying to reach for their quotes, right? Family members have always been involved in true crime, and it's really interesting to see the resistance. And not everybody resists people like you and I, but there certainly has been a resistance. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been accused of just doing this for fame or money, right? And it's like, no, like I said at the top of this, it's never plan A to do this. I wasn't 12 years old when my sister went missing thinking, oh my gosh, this is my, I thought I was going to be a rock star or whatever. Nope. I'm going to be a true crime podcaster, in this genre that doesn't even exist when I'm 12. Nobody is thinking that way. And it's just, it's really refreshing to have somebody else in this space to be told. As much as I know that neither of us wish that we were here, right? If we can go back and change it, I wish you never lost your dad. I'm sure you wish I never lost my sister. But it's really nice to have some company in true crime that knows what you're talking about.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why customers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
What they did to your family, you're lucky to make it out alive.
Streaming on Peacock.
These men are going to come after me. Taking them out is my only chance.
Put a bullet in her head. From the co-creator of Ozark.
Looks like a family was running drugs.
Execution-style killing, it's rare for the keys. Any leads on who they might have been running for?
The cartel killed my family. I'm gonna kill them. All of them.
MIA. Streaming now. Only on Peacock.
And I have to ask you, let's talk about Snitch Ass Daddy and your music video, which is one of my favorite things you've ever done. It's one of my favorite maybe pieces of media in general. And I think it speaks to that, right? About how families can also bring this levity, to the situation. Doing comedy and true crime is very, very difficult. And I think it's very easy to offend people. And I think what people really enjoy is when families like us kind of open up that door where hey, some of these things are laughable, right? And some of these things we can poke fun at. And I think that you did that beautifully with Snitch Ass Daddy. So please, can you tell everybody what my new favorite, not new, but what my favorite song in true crime is and where,
yes.
what motivated you to do that? Please explain what it is, what motivated you to do it. I'm just so excited that I can't properly frame this up for you.
I love it. It's my favorite thing that even I've ever done. And it's so awesome. I just got a message the other day from someone who said it wasn't even about that in particular, but they were really glad that I was doing podcast interviews because they were like, oh, we get to see this whole other side of you. My show is scripted and it's very different than me just rambling and yapping away all the time. So they were like, oh, it's so cool to actually get to know your personality. And see how you're grieving in this very unique way. And Snitch Ass Daddy is the perfect example of that in all aspects. It's my personality wrapped into a song, but it's also this way to process this thing. And I think kind of going back to your point about, oh, you just want to make money or be famous or whatever. It's this double standard that we have for families, which is, I don't care if XYZ podcaster makes this their full-time job and they make $1 million and they can buy a home and buy a car and do all of this stuff with the money that they've made off of someone else's story. But the moment you do it about yours, it's unethical. That's an interesting thing that you listening to this can chew on for a minute while I tell you the story of Snitch Ass Daddy. I got a message from my cousin relatively soon after I started putting out the podcast. And she sent me, it was a very long message, and I keep everything. I read every review. I read all your reviews. Just keep that in mind. Every single one. I read every message, every review, every comment. I read it. I let it do what it does. It fuels me or it makes me sad for a minute and then it fuels me, but whatever. I read them all. And my cousin sent me this message. It was insanely long and it was hard to get through because the grammar on this was horrendous. And she sent me this long thing, and part of it was, your dad deserved to die because he was a snitch ass daddy. And I am like very vocal on the internet about having depression and anxiety. I struggle with it. I try to make it as light and funny as possible, but like some days it's just really dark. And Snitch Ass Daddy happened to spell sad, which is very on brand for me as just a human, but also like I'm investigating my dad's murder. Of course I'm sad. So it just was like she handed me gold in a Facebook hate message. I mean, it was just like, oh my God, I don't know what to do with this, but I love it. I ended up posting the message on my Instagram story, just being like, LOL, like this girl is crazy. And my friend, who's a music producer, was like, oh my God, like I'd love to put Snitch Ass Daddy in a song. And I was like, oh yeah, go for it. That's hilarious. Like whatever. And then I went to sleep and I woke up the next day and I was like, wait a minute. I want to make a song called Snitch Ass Daddy. So it started as sort of me being like, hey, don't put that in anyone else's song. Like, hold it. I want to make a song. I'm not a musician. I don't sing. I've never made music before. But I was like, he was like, what? And I was like, I'm going to make a song. So then I ended up putting sad on the front of a shirt and Snitch Ass Daddy on the back of a shirt. And then people were like, wait, I want one. And it kind of became this thing where I was like, oh, everyone can have a Snitch Ass Daddy shirt. So I started selling them and like I gave them to a bunch of friends, put them on my website, whatever. And then I finally got into the studio with my friend and we wrote this song called Snitch Ass Daddy. And we just pulled lines from messages I've gotten from people. We've pulled things that people have said about me. I reference people saying that I'm getting rich off my podcast, which like meanwhile I'm in like crippling debt. I mean, it was just so funny. So the whole song is just about like me getting rich off my podcast because of my Snitch Ass Daddy. And it's just the best. And it's so fun. I listen to it sometimes. I'm actually kind of nervous for my Spotify Wrapped to come out because I'm like, I'm going to be exposed for how many times I listen to my own song, but it's so funny and it's just like, it's fun and it's a bop, honestly. I mean, my friend is so talented. He's like a Grammy winning producer. So it was just like the perfect person to do a song like this. And we put it out and I had one cousin post something saying something about me. And then at the end he said, now rap about that bitch. And I was like, I love it. Like EP coming soon.
I love it. Like it gets stuck in my head. It is a bop. It is a bop. Absolutely. I love that. Well, and I think, going back to your point and what you touched on, during the song too, like it just, I love, and I don't think spite's the right word. It's like you get motivated to like show people like, you're wrong. And I'm going to show you that. And people are going to be on my side. And, when you're on the side of good and that, your dad did not deserve to die, right? The side of good, I think most people are going to agree with you. And then you can kind of like heal through this art too. But what I wanted to touch on too was that the point you made about positions in true crime being paid for everybody but families. I've talked about this with a variety of people across true crime, and it never ceases to amaze me how not only people, but people in the entertainment industry, people in high positions of power, expect you to volunteer for a position that is normally paid. And it's not that we're trying to, get rich out here, I think. It's that we're trying to command the same respect that every other random person in true crime gets. Like, why does a random podcaster get an appearance fee? But when a family member acts as an executive producer, they're expected to do it for free. Like, I get, I won't play the game about being paid for interviews. I don't believe that people should be paid for interviews. I think that's something totally different. When you were working in an audio position, a visual position, a normally paid position within a company that stands to make quite a bit of money off the project you're making, it is insane to me to say everybody else gets paid but you. You should do this out of the kindness of your heart. You should take this time away from your job that actually pays you, away from your family, away from whatever that might be, because you're the family member. And everything you do, you should be grateful for. Everything you do should just be out of the kindness of your heart. I think it's an insane expectation that only puts families down more. I don't think people realize that, when you have a full-time job and then you're trying to investigate your person's case or make some type of project out of it, you have 2 full-time jobs now. So that wasn't a question, but I would love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's spot on. Like, it is a full-time job. I mean, especially in my case and like your case, I'm the researcher, the writer, the producer, the host. Like, I play all of these roles that on any other, network's show would be all individual line items and have different pay rates for each. And I'm doing all of them by myself while also trying to keep a roof over my head. And also something to kind of touch on really quickly, you talk about this a lot, I won't charge for an interview, but like, I'm supposed to say thank you for like you highlighting my case, but like, I also made you maybe some money because you get to run ads on my interview. So it's this weird sort of like thing, but yeah, I work essentially full time on my show and pay to do it because I pay for and fund my show. But it is really interesting that like, I have a lot of friends in podcasting across all genres, sports and also true crime, but a lot in other recap shows, food. I have a lot of friends in podcasting, and they show up and they get paid and they go home and they get to turn it off, and that's that. And they get paid quite a bit of money from companies that are doing really well and are very successful because they're good at what they do. And I would argue that if you line up my experience with them, it's the same. So by transitive property, I'm good at what I do, but I'm expected to do it for free or even paid to do it just because it's my dad. And well, don't you want it solved? Aren't you desperate for answers? Like, it's almost used against me in a way. And I think that becomes really icky and really gross. And I try to avoid that as much as possible. I try not to think about the money side when I can, but it's hard when, you're trying to keep a roof over your head. You're trying to solve this case. In my case now, I've created this thing that people are interested in and want more episodes of, and I can only do so much with the limited amount of time I have when I'm also trying to provide for myself and my cat child. And I am only one person, and I have a wonderful team of friends who also work for free on my show. And we're all just doing this to further the case. But it gets to a point where it's like, would we be wrong if this became our job? Are we now unethical because we're getting paid for it? Other podcasters that I know aren't unethical, and that's their full-time job. So, and that are not even related to the case. So it's this very weird double standard, I think, that exists for families, that we have to just sort of suck it up and be grateful that anyone's even talking about our case. I mean, in my dad's case, it's like, well, you should just be lucky that like someone's talking about your black drug dealing dad who got murdered 3 years ago almost. And like, you should just consider yourself lucky. And it's like, okay, well, are you going to call Bank of America and tell them that I'm paying my bill this month with luck? Like, no.
Right.
I have to, pay my bills just like everyone else. I spend a lot of time doing this. You're consuming it and entertained by it and fascinated with it. And I should be properly compensated for that.
Yeah. This might sound crazy, but sometimes, and I promise I have a point to go behind it, sometimes I feel like certain people in the community don't want us to be empowered in that way. Like it's better to keep us down, keep us doing interviews, keep us as their interview subjects. But what I think is interesting is this recent conversation around Anna Kendrick and Woman of the Hour and how she donated everything she made, to victims that were affected by similar crimes. So it's almost as if they would rather us accept donations all day and be kept in that place without power where we are so reliant on them. Like, thank you so much for doing a project, and I hope I get this little scrap, instead of empowering us to do the same thing that all these other creators are doing. And I don't know. I just thought of that in the moment, and I thought it was interesting. Like, why are we... And I mean, I get why we're praising people, why we're praising her for giving that money away. That's an incredible thing to do. But how can we do that and then in the same breath say it's not okay for one of those victims that was affected by that case to do something like become an executive producer on that project and get paid for it? I don't know. It's an interesting position I think we're in.
No, totally. I mean, I struggle with this all the time when I'm, fighting for proper compensation, and then I see a post that's like, donate to this organization that's, fighting for justice. And it's like, I might not be a tax write-off, but I'm an organization fighting for justice. And I think that's kind of what it comes down to, right? We see this a lot, and like there's loopholes and everything. Like when you go to wherever, like, I don't know, insert business here, Target, let's say. They don't do this at Target, but like they do this at companies I just can't think of right now. And they're like, oh, do you want to donate like the 35 cents to this company or this nonprofit that's doing good? And like, I always hit no, because they're going to tally up everything they make and do it as a tax write-off for their company. Yep. And I think about that like, oh, sure, investing in my show wouldn't have been a tax write-off, but you're going to go and collect donations for another organization that's doing the exact same thing I'm doing. But then you're going to complain that I wanted to get paid. It's just so wild. And yeah, I think, in her case, I don't, know the ins and outs, but I'm assuming whatever she donated was a tax write-off. But
yeah, for a charitable organization, absolutely, yeah.
Right. And of course that you can't write that off if you're hiring someone and paying them appropriately. So I think that there's this level of like the do good on the front, sort of self-serving on the back. And also maybe, just this level of like, we're not talking about it enough. So maybe that didn't even cross her mind to make them part of the, writing and producing process. But I think that needs to be talked about more, and it needs to be discussed, especially when it's other people's stories. And, she's only one line item. Anna Kendrick is only one line item of that movie. I watched the movie. I thought it was good. There's other people who were on it that got paid, and, why not a family member who could have come in almost like a consultant and said, oh, this is how it really happened, or this is what feels really authentic and true to me. Or consider this when, telling this story, that the victims don't look a certain way or whatever. There's so many ways to incorporate, even if it's like a 2-hour call, just to sit down and say, she reached out, and maybe she didn't do any of the things I said, but she took the time to sit down and talk to me, I think makes a big difference, and like compensate me for my time. I think it's really tricky when you're turning tragedy into art at this level. Obviously people do this in comedy and other things, and it's a little different, but I think when you're turning true crime into art, it's delicate and it's really tough. And I think when you aren't including families and victims, you get into really dark territory where you almost lose the true part of the true crime. And in your mind, it's really easy to compartmentalize and just think you're telling a random story that was made up. And I think having victims in the room allows you to remember, oh yeah, this is a real story. This is something that really happened to someone. And I think it helps you not lose sight of that while you're creating whatever you're creating.
Now, I can't speak about exactly who was involved or wasn't in that project. I didn't go that deep, to be totally honest with you. But I wonder if that seat at the table isn't held for us because of that guilt factor. Because when we are there, it makes them feel this heaviness that they don't want to feel. You know what I mean? They want to do their job, which I get. I think most people want to do their jobs, go home and not think about it, right? We don't have that luxury. But I almost wonder if it's by design, right? It almost makes it feel too real sometimes when we're that deeply involved.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I came from a news background, and it's hard to tell these stories. It's hard to, report on or convey things that happen to people that are just really dark. I mean, I struggle a lot with, I can't like walk past unhoused people. It like my heart hurts for like days. Like it like eats away at me. And I think I can't even imagine when, and this is just like, I'm on the street and I like overhear a conversation about like someone's struggle. Today I was at Trader Joe's and the worker at Trader Joe's was telling the other worker at Trader Joe's that he's got to start eating at home more because he had to take his cat to the vet and his cat had a UTI and it was $500. And like my heart's just like breaking. And it's like, and that's just a conversation I heard. If I'm in the room with someone telling their story about a murdered family member, I mean, multiply that little cat scenario or seeing an unhoused person like put on a pair of shoes by 100, right? It's like, it's in your face. And I am generally pretty empathetic. Like I can't imagine being like even slightly narcissistic and then having to face that and just be like, oh, this is just in my face all day. Like it would drive me nuts. So I do think that's part of it. I think that it's also the stark reminder of like, oh, the inequities in pay. Like, oh, I'm making whatever. I mean, movies is different, but like podcasts, it's like, oh, I'm making, let's say 50% of the revenue on this show. And I wasn't impacted by this, had nothing to do with it. This person's out here making this show deeply impacted by this story, and we're making the exact same amount of money. I mean, I wouldn't want to be reminded of that all the time.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like there's this resistance from what I call old school true crime and new true crime. You know, I think doing true crime ethically and including people like us or families in general takes more time, more resources, it costs more money. And I think that there's always going to, well, not always, I hope not always. I think that there is a resistance to that because for a very long time, true crime was able to be made extremely cheap, really, really fast, putting out multiple episodes a week because you're not interviewing family members, you're not you're not using any resources. And I think, of course, when people like you or I, or, any family in true crime, or people that just care about families in true crime say, hey, you should stop and allocate more resources to make sure you're doing this correctly, there's going to be resistance to that because it costs them more money. It's just the bottom line. Why do things in a different way when it's worked for so long to just pump out content and not care? But I think that's where the consumer piece comes in. And I think that's the big disconnect that these big companies especially and a lot of big creators don't see. They want to pump out their content, they want to make their money, and they're always going to have that solid audience, right? But more and more people, these consumers that help us, are saying, but what about the families? What about that? You could have done more with this. I saw somebody else do more. I saw her, she has a whole podcast. Why didn't you mention it? The consumers are growing. I don't know if growing is the right word, but they're changing a lot faster, I think, than the entertainment industry as a whole. And I don't think that the entertainment industry necessarily wants to keep up with them because it's going to cost them more money. But, and I think you and I agree on this, people who will not do that and resist that change will continue to see their numbers go down.
For sure. Especially and we've sort of talked about this, like the supply and demand shifts. So right now, it's easy for creators to say, oh, nobody cares about families and victims because those stories aren't the ones getting pushed, but there aren't that many of them. As there are more, we will start to see those shows climb to the top. And then we can point to that and say, oh, actually, once they're being fed those stories, they actually do like those stories. But no one's creating those stories. So how would we know? And now there's like a sprinkle here and there of these stories and they perform well. And then we go, oh yeah, see that? They actually do like media pressure because they like that perspective. And then I think it will start to sort of, enough of those will start to shift the perspective of these bigger companies to go, oh, and even if they only adapt for their bottom line, at least they'll figure it out. But yeah, I mean, I think that when you throw in company, business, job to people who have no connection to these stories, it does not matter their level of empathy. It does not matter their level of care. The bottom line will always have to drive those factors because just like us, they have to put food on the table. So they have to figure out how to ride that line. I think there's a way to do it. I don't know how willing people are to sit and brainstorm that. But I think there's a way to do it. I think there's people out there who want, like us, who are willing to sit down with people and figure out whatever that means and whatever that looks like and how to structure a business that makes money, but also includes, you know, the right people in the right rooms. And I don't think I need to be in every room. But I think that my consideration when it comes to my dad's case should be on the table. And so I think what we're talking about is super reasonable and like easy to do. It's just a matter of like when people don't like to take risk. And I think when they're making millions of dollars or however much money, and they know what they're doing is working, they don't want to change. And so now it's like, again, on us, the families, to prove that, oh, that change is going to be worth it, or that change is going to make you money, or that change is going to drive the same traffic that you're getting on these other shows. And of course the burden is on us to do that, but, I will take one for the team and, yeah.
Yeah.
Make my reputation album.
I love it. Snitch Ass Daddy. No, and that's why I'm so unapologetically, like, I will always talk about money in this industry. And when people say, like, you just want money, you want to be number one. Yeah, I do. I absolutely want to make money and I want to be number one so that we can show these larger companies that it's possible. Like, media pressure hitting number one, like, was such a milestone, I think, for families in true crime. And that's what I wanted it to be, was like, I want to show the world that we can do it just as good, if not better, than these companies, right? These random creators who I think some of them are fantastic. I'm not bashing all random creators. They just don't have that same vested interest, right? It's like, I think I've probably talked about this exact same thing to you, right? You know, if there's a genre, let's say, of military podcasts, would you expect someone with military service to be at the top? Absolutely. So why in true crime are we just expecting random people to be at the top? I don't know. It's something I like talking about because I like to shift that perspective. Like, yes, I want to be number one because I want to break the wheel of true crime and redesign it to help families. I want to give back like nobody has before. I want to change my life. I want to change the lives of all these families that are impacted by true crime. And I can't do that without the same money and resources as people making millions of dollars a year. I just can't. That's just not the way that the world works.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I feel like people, well, I don't know. I guess I'm in my head about stuff a lot, but I always wonder if, you know, people are like, oh, all she wants to do is be number one. And I'm like, yeah, because my dad deserves that. This case deserves that. The work I've been doing deserves that. Like, there's so much more to it than just like being number one on the podcast charts. And to your point, it shows people what the consumers are interested in. And you know, I think that is so important. It's your review, right? Like if you don't want to write a review and if you have anything mean to say, just save the time. Just listen. And that will drive up the numbers and that will move it to number one. And that will show people like, yeah, people are consuming this kind of content. The number of times I pitched this story before I ended up making it myself and spending all my money on it, I mean, so many times. And every single time it was like, no one's going to care about this case. Unless your dad's name is John Benet Ramsey, no one gives a shit. And I am here to hit number one and be like, yeah, that's not true. people care about people, and people care about my dad. And my dad didn't deserve to die, even if he was a snitch ass daddy. And, that's just that. And his story is so wildly compelling on its own. But the fact that it's unsolved just seems so unfair. And it's the reason that I'm, doing any of the things I'm doing. It's the reason I travel the world and talk about this case. It's the reason I, spend all my money on it. It's the reason that I'm exhausted and jet lagged. And, people will think what they will about the lifestyle I live. And you know what? If it's glamorous in your head, perception is reality. I'll take it. But it's hard work. And I'm fucking tired.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd argue it's harder than just researching a case, turning off your computer and being able to walk away. And I know that cases stick with people and it's not that easy, especially for creators who care deeply. But I always use this analogy of but they're not at Thanksgiving dinner looking at a chair and thinking, that person should be here. They're not having these critical points in their lives, getting married, having babies, whatever it might be, and wishing that person was there. That's just, it's just not. And there's always going to be a difference. But my goal with these, with helping share your dad's case is to hopefully get you to number one. So I think you've done such a great job with the podcast, but I know that it's not over. So I wanted to ask you about that. What's going on with the podcast? What's going on with the case? And what do we have to look forward to? What's in the future?
Yeah. So, I've been in a bit of a pickle with the show. So I was holding off for a while, but we have our first part 3 pre-production meeting tomorrow. So working on the next installment of the show, which is going to look, feel, and sound a lot different. And I'm very excited about sort of the next iteration of what this is going to be, much more authentic to who I am. And I'm really excited about sort of the creative decisions that I'm making that I now feel the freedom to make in these next 9 episodes. I have gotten a lot of info over the last few months with people going to prison for random things and people coming out of prison for other things and people running around town just yapping their mouths. So I have a lot of work cut out for me as far as people to talk to. But they all seem a little chattier than they used to. So that's exciting and gives me a little bit of hope. I think I'm pretty close. I've had a lot of help through this community of people that I've met and other, family members and researchers and incredible investigators, wonderful journalists who have reached out with advice and help and support. And I think that that's exactly what I needed to sort of get the information on the other side. And so I'm feeling very hopeful that some sense of closure is coming for me, which I desperately need because I am really ready to take a break. But I knew that I would know when it was time, and it's just not yet. I need to keep going, but I think I'm close. I think I'm very close. But yeah, new episodes are coming, crazy interviews, people who are just so tied to this story, who can't shut up.
I love that, though. I mean, those last few episodes, too, were insane. I am so looking forward to this next set of episodes. I love the way that you did the podcast and it unfolding in real time and you giving real time feedback. I think that it's so cool and raw, and it's exactly the way that I like to listen to podcasts. So thank you for what you do, because I think it's amazing. I think that you are not only helping your dad, but helping all families in true crime and helping people, just, I don't know, I guess have a little more empathy in true crime. I care for you, and I know a lot of other people do too. And I'm really, really excited to see where it goes. I know that you're going to keep doing amazing things and keep getting amazing featers that are like every time I'm like, oh, she's like in Glamour UK. All right, Madison.
So wild.
I wonder if she'll talk to me now. No, just kidding. But where can people find you? Let's end on that note. Where can they find you to follow you, follow the show, follow all your social media, and see, what magazine cover you're going to be on next or whatever?
Yeah, so I'm just Madison_McGhee on literally everything. And then Ice Cold Case on Instagram. And I think that's really the main one. We were on, the app that shall not be named, but I don't really get on there anymore. So Ice Cold Case on Instagram. And then Ice Cold Case wherever you get your podcasts. We're on it, I think. And if we're not, let me know and I'll figure that out. But I think I'm everywhere that you can get a podcast. And yeah, stay tuned for part 3. I mean, if you're new, this is like the perfect time to jump in. There's 18 episodes. So lots to catch up on, lots to binge. And a new set is coming soon.
Yes, if you guys liked season 1 of Voices for Justice, where I told Alyssa's story in excruciating detail, I think Madison does a better job than I did, but there are so many episodes out there that you can binge right now. And then hopefully by the time you're all caught up, this 3rd set of episodes will be out. Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much, Madison. I appreciate what you do. I appreciate just having you in my life, and you're wonderful.
I feel the literal same. Thank you so much.
Loose lip bitches sink ships, yeah, I know. Now I've got the mic on my shit like Joro. Ooh, Nancy Grace in your face with a cold case. All these cops saying wrong time, wrong place. I'll stay cool, you'll be getting RICO'd. Got you charged up, sounds better with a beat though. Trying to solve the case, now I'm such a disgrace. But you're the ones lying to my face. Snitch ass, snitch ass, snitch ass daddy. 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 Snitch ass daddy got you sad in my DMs. I'll tell your daddy I said hi when you see him. My vibes be so high cause you keep me amused. Stay a mess in the comments, adding to my views. I'm living rent free, on repeat in your brain. I'm getting rich, watching you go insane. You're in vibe for my plot, my revenge. You wanna fight? Nah, stay mad about my snitch ass, snitch ass, snitch ass daddy. 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 Go talk your shit. Cause karma's a bitch, you call me snitch. I'm still getting rich, go talk your shit. Cause karma's a bitch, you call me snitch. I'm still getting rich. Snitch ass,